putting down the wrenches today, and that's because we have a very special story to share with you because of a unique opportunity that basically fell in our laps quite unexpectedly. We had a company called Enthusiast Gaming reach out to us and say, basically looking for an automotive expert to come out to the racetrack and act as a host, a guide, a driving Sherpa for a pro gamer who's never been to the racetrack before, and to guide them through that first experience in 3 very special cars. And having chatted with them briefly, we then discovered that those 3 very special cars are Toyota's full lineup of GR performance cars. So they had the GR Corolla, the GR 86, and the GR Supra all there at the racetrack at our disposal. And when we heard the words racetrack and Toyota GR cars, we couldn't say no. So I jumped on an airplane to Vancouver Island, which was selected for this special experience because it's the warmest place in Canada. And the hope was that we would get there and it would be sunny and warm, and we'd have a perfect day at the racetrack in February, which is a pretty difficult thing to pull off in Canada. But that was the hope. And unfortunately, the weather didn't quite cooperate. I think it was warmer in Ontario than it was on Vancouver Island when I arrived. The pro gamer turns out to have been Miss Harvey, who is one of the earliest pro gamer women. And she was like a 5-time world champion at Counter-Strike, and was also, I think, the first woman to start an all-women's pro gamer team. So my hope was that she would arrive with lots of driving experience and lots of willingness to go out there and rip hot laps. But as it turns out, she didn't have a lot of experience driving manuals, but we'll get to that a little later. It was great to get some laps in right away in the GR Corolla, because that was the only car of the group that I'd never driven before. So I was really excited to get in it and spend some time sort of figuring out what it was all about. And I am delighted to report that my expectations were, all-wheel drive car, maybe it's going to have a little bit of an understeer, but have tremendous drive out of the corners, the way a lot of other all-wheel drive performance cars have been in my experience. But no, it's actually much more playful than that. It's really willing to turn early. You can throw it into a 4-wheel drift. It really is a very driver-focused car, and you can drive it in a lot of different ways. I think it's a very flexible platform that way, and a very stiff and responsive platform at that. I really enjoyed the way I could toss it into quarters, play with its attitude, without it ever feeling like it wanted to inherently understeer or oversteer. And by the way, I did have it in like the 50-50 mode in terms of front-rear power distribution, which is what they recommend at the racetrack for like the fast way around. But you could send as much as 70% power to the rear in that car, which I never actually tried because I was just having so much fun with it in 50-50 mode that I never felt the need to change it up. But wow, the car does have tremendous grip, tremendous power. But what impressed me most about it was how nimble and light on its feet it felt. It didn't feel the way a lot of heavier all-wheel drive performance cars feel. It felt more like it shared some DNA maybe with the GR 86, which also feels very light and nimble on its toes. It feels kind of like an all-wheel drive version of that car with a lot more power. And man, that 3-cylinder motor is a honey. It makes great noises. It makes really good torque, really good power at the top end. A lot of turbo cars from the factory kind of run out of puff in the last 8,000 RPM of the rev range, but this car pulls all the way to redline really strongly. Admittedly in cold weather, so it was making a lot of power. I haven't tried it in warm weather yet, but I'm sure it's going to be great there too. So really excited to report that car was an absolute blast to drive, and is a much more playful car in the corners than I've experienced in any other all-wheel drive car. So stoked to get our hands on our own version of that car. As some of you may know, that we are actually buying a Morizo edition GR Corolla. So you will be seeing more GR Corolla content on our channel this summer as we play around with that car and do some light modifications to it, because we are, after all, Speed Academy, and that's what we do. So at that point, Miss Harvey actually arrived at the track, and I was then introducing her to the 3 cars, kind of bringing her up to speed on what they were going to drive like. And I did a demo lap or two in each car with her on board, partly just to familiarize her with the track, but also for her to get a sense of what each of the 3 cars could do performance-wise, and maybe to get her reaction a bit too, right? To kind of surprise her with the capabilities of the car, because she'd never been to the racetrack before, and she was certainly a little bit intimidated, but I think she was also having an absolute blast, as you will see in the video on her channel. Jumping into the GR 86 felt very much like being at home again, because Pete and I have spent so much time in the previous generation car, and this generation of the car really keeps all of the specialness of that car in terms of its handling dynamics. It's a driver-focused setup in the car. I mean, you're in the perfect driving position. Everything just falls to hand perfectly. It's so playful at the limit. It's so easy to get it to rotate on throttle. It's really the perfect learner's car for somebody who wants to go out and have fun in a front engine, rear wheel drive sports car. So if you really want to learn how to like play with the rear end of a car, with the throttle, maybe do a little bit of drifting, or just enjoy what is a very affordable sports car, I think the GR86 is absolutely unbeatable. And with that new, bigger FA24 2.4 liter motor, it really does come alive a lot more than it did with the old 2 liter motor. It feels much quicker in a straight line. It feels much torquier. So it just feels much more willing to pull through the power range. And I just felt totally at home in that car. I wanted to lap in it all day because I feel such a connection with that chassis. If I had 30 grand to spend on a brand new car right now and I wanted something fun that I could daily drive and take to the track, to me it's that car hands down all day long. But from there we went into the GR Supra, which is of course the most powerful car in the group and an absolute rocket ship in a straight line. I mean, I can't think of too many cars at any price point that's faster from 0 to 100 kilometers an hour than the GR Supra is. So I mean, at its price in the $50,000 to $60,000 range, it's incredibly fast, incredibly capable, but it is a more advanced driver's type of experience. So it does have a very lively rear end. It's much more willing to slide the rear end in a fairly quick way than some drivers might be ready for. So I would describe it as like the advanced driver's car of the group. You really have to be on your game to get everything out of that car because it has such a high performance threshold. But of course, if you leave all the stability control on, you leave it in what is a very safe mode electronically, you're not going to have any difficulty keeping it on track. It's just those systems will intervene, as they did with Miss Harvey at the end of her day, when she was pushing quite hard in the Supra and actually got stability and ABS kicking in a fairly exciting way at one moment. So the electronics on the Supra are amazing, and they can be a really good teaching aid if you leave them on, and then when you're ready to advance, you can turn them off and really play with the car at the limit. But you do have to have quick hands to catch it, and a willingness to accept how fast that car is really capable of going. The speed in it might be intimidating, I guess you could say, to a new driver. But if you're an experienced track driver, or you're just experienced with higher horsepower cars, I think the Supra is incredibly capable and a lot of fun to drive. And I love the way it looks. I mean, to me, that car has aged extremely well. I think it's a beautiful, unique design that really stands out from anything else in its category. So all three cars, I think, deliver a very unique, special driving experience. They're all an absolute ton of fun to drive. I love driving all three of them around this racetrack. I think of the three, the GR Corolla was the most fun around that track because it was new to me and because that technical circuit really suited that car's characteristics. But the GR86 was also a blast around that track. The Supra, I think, to me, would really shine more on like a big boy racetrack like Mossport, Watkins Glen, somewhere where it can really stretch its legs. But on a tight technical circuit like Vancouver Island Motorsports Circuit, I think the GR86 or the Corolla are really the weapon of choice there. We're just so much fun to drive. And I think Miss Harvey would probably agree, although she did build confidence as she progressed through those three cars. She started in the GR Corolla, where I basically had to teach her again how to drive a manual. And we worked through it quite quickly. Just in pit lane, she got the feel for how to launch it in first gear. And just with a little bit of patience and persistence, she got the hang of it, I would say, within 15 minutes. And to her credit, she then went out on track and got it in the third gear, never stalled it. And all three of those cars, you could really drive around the track in third gear. And so she didn't have to do a lot of shifting on track, and she was still able to experience the cars in a racetrack environment and really get a fair bit of performance out of them. And of course, the GR Supra being automatic, that took the whole manual gearbox element out of it. And I'm sure you'll see in her video that she really did have a great time, and that all three cars, I think she adapted to very quickly. And credit to Toyota GR for designing these cars in a way where even a total novice can get in them, drive them around a racetrack in a really safe and fun-filled way, and really have an amazing experience without it being overly intimidating or overly difficult to drive. So that is it, guys. That was the experience that I had on Vancouver Island. Man, such a cool experience. Very grateful that Enthusiast Gaming and Toyota GR trusted me as the guide for Miss Harvey through this experience in these three amazing performance cars. So hope you enjoyed this, and we will get back to the wrenching in the next one.